Three league games on this Friday night in the Northeast 2B. No, I don't need it. Okay, we're just rolling one long thing, right? All right. Two games Thursday night in the Greater Spokane League, and one of them is a monster game. You know, we've got that log jam atop the GSL. Meade and Shadle Park will play the nightcap at Joe Albee Stadium. Both teams coming in at 4-1. The Highlanders featuring Brett Rippon, who has been unbelievable in his last couple of football games throwing the ball. That is at 7:15 as the 4-1 Highlanders take on the 4-1 Panthers. The early game, Gonzaga Prep at 4-1 on the season, trying to stay in the fight for that playoff spot. Among the 4A teams will take on North Central, the Indians, with just one win in their first football games. That's the first game. That will be played at Albee at 4:15, and what should be a very interesting Thursday night in the Greater Spokane League. Three games Friday night in the Greater Spokane League, including a doubleheader at Joe Albee Stadium. The first game will be Ferris at 4-1, taking on Mount Spokane at 4-1. With that logjam atop the Greater Spokane League, one slip-up could cost you a playoff spot. One slip-up could knock you out of the postseason altogether. The Saxons at 4-1, Mount Spokane at 4-1. It should be a heck of a football game. That kicks off at 5 o'clock. The nightcap at Joe Albee Stadium, the Rogers Pirates, the last team in the Greater Spokane League without a victory, still looking for that first victory. They're 0-5. They'll take on the Lewis and Clark Tigers at 1-4. That game kicks off at 7:30. There is one outside game on Friday night in the Greater Spokane League, and that'll be the Battle of the Valley. Central Valley and University will hook up at U-High. The CV Bears at 3-2, the U-High Titans at 1-4. Any more losses for either one of these two teams, and they could find themselves out of the playoff picture. That kicks off again at 7 o'clock at University High School. Still doing it. Got a ways to go. Busy night of the Great Northern League on Friday night. 3 league games and 1 game outside the league. The big one, actually a couple of big ones for you. 2 teams that are unbeaten so far in league play. East Valley, who hasn't given up a point in their 2 victories in their 2 league plays, will take on Cheney. The Blackhawks are 4-1 overall, but their only blemish on the record was a league loss to Pullman. That game will be at East Valley at 7 o'clock. The Knights 2-0 in league play. Cheney 0-1. The other unbeaten, those Pullman Greyhounds, they're at 2-0 atop the standings with East Valley. They will be at Clarkston. The Bantams find themselves at 0-2. The third game, West Valley trying to stay in the playoff chase at 1-1. Deer Park looking for its first conference victory this season. They will play their second league game. They are at 0-1. Lakeland at 2-3 will make the drive up to Colville. From Rathdrum to Colville, the Indians are 1-1 in league play, but stepping out of the league to play an Idaho team this weekend. All 4 of those games in the Great Northern League will kick off at 7 o'clock. Don't forget, we'll have highlights and scores of these games on Friday Night Sports Extra. Hope you can join us on Friday night. Okay, Northern Idaho. Busy slate for the big schools in Northern Idaho, but most of the teams playing non-league games. Lake City will be at Sandpoint. The Timberwolves at 3-2, the Bulldogs at 2-3, a non-league game for both those squads. Post Falls will travel down to the Tri-City area to take on Hanford in a non-league game. The Trojans are 3-3 overall on the season. Moscow heads to Lewiston, that short trip, but it's always been a great rivalry between those 2 teams down in the Lewis and Clark Valley. The Bears at 3-3, the Bengals are at 2-3, and Lakeland will travel up to Colville in a Washington-Idaho border battle. The Hawks are at 2-3. Colville is at 3-2 in those non-league games. All 4 of those games will be kicking off at 7 o'clock. In the Intermountain League, we start league play. Timberlake and Bonners Ferry will open up league play, and it's Priest River and Kellogg as both those 4 teams fighting for the playoff spot, and that begins on Friday night. And then in Central Idaho, Grangeville and St. Mary's will also start their league action. Both teams 0-0 on the season in league play as they will kick off conference play there. All those games will start at 7 o'clock. We'll have scores and highlights coming up for you on Friday Night Sports Extra. We hope to see you coming up Friday night. Okay, Northeast A. There are a lot of big games in the area on Friday night, but no game is bigger than the fight for the top spot in the Northeast A. The Freeman Scotties at 5-0, just one of two 11-man football teams in the area that are unbeaten. 2-0 in league play, will take on Lakeside with just one loss, but they've got a half-game lead on the Scotties. The Eagles are 3-0. That game kicks off at 9 Mile Falls up in Suncrest at 7 o'clock. It should be a whale of a game, and our cameras will be there for Friday Night Sports Extra. The rest of the schedule, Newport will be at Riverside. The Rams, who suffered their first loss of the season last week, in getting shut out at Freeman, they take their 2-1 league record to at home and play host to Newport at 0-2. Medical Lake at 1-2 in league play will head to Chewelah to take on the Cougars. They are 1-1 in league play. And Kettle Falls at 0-5, still looking for its first victory of the season, steps out of league play. They will host Bridgeport. That's a game that kicks off at 6 o'clock in Kettle Falls. The rest of the action, the three games at Lakeside, at Riverside, and Chewelah all kick off at 7 o'clock. Scores and highlights coming up for you on Friday Night Sports Extra. We hope you can join us. Northeast 2B. 3 league games on this Friday night in the Northeast 2B. One non-league game. We'll see Colfax at 3-0 in league play, 3-1 overall, step outside the league. They'll be hosting Orfino. The Maniacs make the drive over from Idaho. That kicks at 7 o'clock. Now, there are 3 league games. And Lynn Ritzville Sprague, one of just 2 11-man teams unbeaten in the area. They're 4-0 on the season, 2-0 in the league. They will take on Springdale at 0-3. That game will be played in Ritzville on Friday night. Northwest Christian still looking for its first win of the season. In fact, first win in school history in their first year. They're 0-3. They head to Reardon. Reardon comes into this 1-1, having lost to Lynn Ritzville Sprague. Also a tough game with Bonners Ferry last week. The Indians looking to snap a 2-game skid. And Liberty at 2-1 will be at Davenport at 1-2. Both these teams desperate for another victory as they try to chase down Reardon, Lynn Ritzville Sprague, and Colfax. The loser of that game could be out of the playoff hunt. Again, all 4 games starting at 7 o'clock in the Northeast 2B. Hopefully you can join us on Friday Night Sports Extra. We'll have scores and highlights, and we appreciate you joining us on KXLY4. And 8-man football. Plenty of games to talk about on this Friday afternoon and this Friday evening in the 8-man games in eastern Washington and northern Idaho. Let's start with the Northeast 1B. A couple of teams still sporting unbeaten records in the Northern Division. Republic at 3-0 on the season will head to Selkirk at 2-1. That's a key game in the fight for the playoff spots. Inchelium Columbia at 2-0 will travel to Welpinit. That's 1-2. That game will kick off at 3 o'clock. And Northport will be at Curlew. Both teams looking for their first victory of the season. That's also a 3 o'clock start. Odessa Harrington at 3-0 and will take on Cusick at 2-1. That's a crossover game between those two, but still counting in the league standings. That should be a heck of a game at 7 o'clock in Cusick. Pateros will be at Wilbur Creston. The Billy Goats are 2-1. The Wildcats are 3-0 on the season. We expect a very good game in Wilbur, kicking off at 7 o'clock. Elmira Cooley Heartline at 2-1 makes the drive to Entiat. They are 0-2 in conference play, and Waterville will host Soap Lake, looking for its first victory of the season. Soap Lake has a win, but they're 0-2. Both teams looking for their first conference game. In the Southeast 1B, Garfield Palouse and St. John Endicott. That old Whitman County rivalry will heat up. Garpal still looking for its first win of the season. They're 0-2 in league play. St. John Endicott also looking for its first league win. They already have 2 non-league wins. They're 0-2 as well. Colton unbeaten will be at Touchy unbeaten. 2 teams that are spotless in league play. Colton at 2-0, Touchy at 1-0. And then Pomeroy will take on La Crosse, Washtuck, Colotis. Pomeroy is at 1-1 in conference play. Lac Wash Colotis is at 0-2, but still seeking its first victory of the season. Also, 8-man football in North Idaho, 3 games to tell you about. Lakeside in league at 1-0, at Kootenai at 1-0. Mullen has not played a league game yet, will be at Clark Fork, who's 0-2. And Wallace steps outside of league play. The Miners are 5-0 on the season. They'll head down to the LC Valley and take on Lapway. All those Idaho games kicking off at 7 o'clock. We hope you join us for Friday Night Sports Extra. All the scores, all the highlights on the original high school football show in Northern Idaho and Eastern Washington. We hope to see you on KXLY4. Okay, that's it. Thank you, sir. One non-league game, we'll see Colfax at 3-0 in league play, 3-1 overall, step outside the league. They'll be hosting Orfino. The Maniacs make the drive over from Idaho. That kicks at 7 o'clock. Now, there are 3 league games. And Lynn Ritzville Sprague, one of just 2 11-man teams unbeaten in the area. They're 4-0 on the season, 2-0 in the league. They will take on Springdale at 0-3. That game will be played in Ritzville on Friday night. Northwest Christian still looking for its first win of the season. In fact, first win in school history in their first year. They're 0-3. They head to Reardon. Reardon comes into this 1-1, having lost to Lynn Ritzville Sprague. Also a tough game with Bonners Ferry last week. The Indians looking to snap a 2-game skid. And Liberty at 2-1 will be at Davenport at 1-2. Both these teams desperate for another victory as they try to chase down Reardon, Lynn Ritzville Sprague, and Colfax. The loser of that game could be out of the playoff hunt. Again, all 4 games starting at 7 o'clock in the Northeast 2B. Hopefully you can join us on Friday Night Sports Extra. We'll have scores and highlights, and we appreciate you joining us on KXLY4.